how are you feeling about this matchup versus I know we just beat Boston, and we beat them on Christmas Day,
I like
too.
how you said we. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, I want them to win.
Jason.
But how are you feeling about this particular matchup? Because, Toronto is the 1 seed, and historically 1 seeds don't lose to the 8 seed. They got about an 8% chance of winning this game.
I'm encouraged.
Are you?
I'm encouraged, and here's why. I'm all about game 1. I don't really even care about talking about the series. All I care about is if this team can focus, and here's why. Toronto is notorious for giving up the first game of a series. I think they've lost 9 or 10 of their first opening game series.
Mm-hmm.
If Washington goes in there and takes game 1, what do you think the storyline will be after that game? Around 8:30 Saturday night. It'll be, oh, I remember that Wizards team. That was the team like 3 years ago that did that same thing to Toronto, and then all hell broke loose in that country. Because that fan base can't deal with game 1 losing and have to sit on that for 3 days before they play again. So psychologically, the Wizards could have an advantage by going in and playing the right way. This isn't a sub-500 team. This is the best team in the Eastern Conference that, with Houston, shares the best home record this season. They only lost 7 times. So think about the psychological advantage Washington could have if they go in there in game 1 and beat Toronto.
And, Chris, I think you have to be encouraged, too, by the heavy minutes that John Wall has been logging since he's been back. Now, he's been getting days off after logging, 38, 36, 33 minutes in some of these games, but these playoffs are built with long stretches in between games. So I think that works in the Wizards' favor. I think John Wall is going to play 35-plus minutes per game. What do you think you're going to see from Wall starting in game 1?
I think he's probably the X factor of the series, because when he's right, and we've seen him since he's come back, guys, play at a really high level. The turnovers are a little bit high, but I think he's trying to get a rhythm with his teammates. But he'll win his matchup with Kyle Lowry. I think that's just going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
I think who cancels each other out is Beal and DeRozan. So then what happens? What's the other key? The key to me then is which bench shows up in the series. And Toronto has one of the best benches in the league. And if Washington can counteract that, they win the series. But Wall will be Wall. I mean, that's like the one guy on the team you don't have to worry about that's going to post every game, ready to put up some numbers. So I think he's going to be playing at a really high level. And the fact that, as you said, they're going to get multiple days off in between games. So they play Saturday. Game 2 is not until Tuesday.
Right.
Chris, why do we think, and I think it's just hometown bias, but why do we think that they're just going to be able to turn it on and then, win as an 8 seed? We did the math. They have an 8% chance just based on seed of advancing. 8 seeds don't beat 1 seeds. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think that's the motivation, too. I think that's something that Scott Brooks can tell these guys. Listen, nobody's going to give you a chance. But I've seen all year long what they look like when they're right. Mm-hmm. Mentally as a team, they're healthy physically. I still think their best win was at Boston on Christmas Day. And if you go back and look at that, what's the formula as good as they can be? All 5 starters scored in double figures. Wall had double-digit assists. Gortat had double-digit rebounds.
Mm-hmm.
Wall, Beal, and Porter were their 3 best players. And Kelly Oubre scored 16 points off the bench. That, to me, was like the perfect game this season of what this team could do in the playoffs. And if they can get back, in fact, I'm going to go on a limb, guys, and say this. If Washington takes Game 5, they might get Toronto out of there in 5 games.
Wow.
Man, you are really optimistic. You're really optimistic.
Listen. And I put all the pressure on them because of all the talk before the season started about Eastern Conference Finals or bust. Okay, after 82 games, you put yourself in a position to be the 8th seed. Okay, fine. But if you want to be as good as you said you wanted to be, then your road to get there will be harder than anybody else's in the East. You got to beat Toronto, and then potentially in the second round, you got to knock off LeBron.
Right.
That's what happens when you put yourself in that position.
Chris, I see what you're saying. All right. I get it. But when you play Toronto, all right, Toronto doesn't have this history of, this legacy of doing special things in the playoffs. I get it. But you got to be on top of your game for minimum 4 games and probably 6 or 7. You think 5, I think more than that. But they've lost 11 of 16. This team has lost to 11 of 16, and they've lost to, like Cake says, Tankapalooza teams. Teams that just – Orlando didn't give a rat's ass about that game last night. So how do they focus on this? How can they just flip the switch for a longer series when they couldn't do it against the worst teams in the league?
Because they feel like they could do it. That's the funniest thing about this Wizards team all year long.
So it's
that
just
I
moxie?
get it.
Is it just
drives
moxie?
fans crazy. It's just they even admit it. For some reason, they just really are disinterested against sub-500 teams. But look how they play against playoff teams. I mean, it's like the most Jekyll and Hyde thing I've seen covering the league for 20 years.